Coming up on the dirty side of the track this week, it's another sap food analogy.
Eat the sides. This was the sides. It was like, all right, fries and mac and cheese? Yeah, all right, mac and cheese and fries are fine, but when are we getting back to the brisket?
And Rob's more worried about blackjack than the race.
Brian's got 21. Now, I was willing to take the hit here, because what happened then in this chaos these last couple of laps is as Oscar takes Charles, you lose blackjack.
Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. That's Rob. Me, I'm Brian. You are the most important part of the Dirty Side. Thank you for joining us this week. The Miami Grand Prix wrapped up about 11 minutes ago, and it was fantastic.
It was so good. Man, I don't even want to do any like downers thoughts. I'll save those for later, but I'm just pumped off after watching spectacular Grand Prix. I got to be honest. And no, thankfully the rain stayed away, so we didn't get any of that kind of shenanigans going on. So yeah, it's going to be a packed one because we are going to dive into the news and social first of all. Then we'll crack open the video vault. Then we'll have like 3,000 things to pull apart in the race weekend because it was a sprint. So we've got practice review, sprint quali, race, then all the various falls out of the race. But then we haven't got a race preview because after waiting 6,000 years for this one, we don't go back to back. But it is true that the next race is Canada.
I was so excited as they wrapped up the telecast and they said, we'll see you in 3 weeks' time in Montreal. I'm like, yeah, you'll see me for real. I'll be there.
Actually, they didn't race. They were there. Was it Martin that messed it up first and went, and now we head to Melbourne? We're like, no, we don't, Martin.
Yeah, that was a mistake. And then someone else, Kimi or someone, said 2 weeks. 2 weeks until Montreal. No, it's 3. But who's counting? Just me and Rob.
Yeah, I know. Getting excited. Anyway, do we want to dive into the news?
Sad news to start. I feel like this is the second of 3 weeks where we've had to have some sort of sad news to start. Alex Zanardi passed away. Alex Zanardi, former F1 driver, former IndyCar driver, 2-time champion in kart. And I knew him best for his accident when he lost his legs in a kart race coming back on the track. Horrible collision. Basically T-boned by a guy at 210 miles an hour. He was going, 5. And so it was just a horrible, horrible accident. But Alex Zanardi always made lemonade out of the lemons life gave him. A great racing driver, a great person, a great spirit. He became a Paralympics gold medalist.
I didn't know any of this.
Hand cycle. Oh, yeah, I remember following this. Hand cycling. I didn't know that was... I mean, you watched him. You saw the sweat. Again, just a great champion in everything he did. And just terribly sad. And he had so many connections across the grid. Adam Cooper on Twitter pointed it out. I'm sure there'll be a lot of love for Alex Zanardi in the F1 paddock today. He touched the lives of so many people. He drove for Williams and the previous versions of Aston Martin and Visa Cash App RB. Tested for Alpine. He knew Flavio from the Benetton days. Many of his friends were there. And a friend of the pod, Jamie Price, had an amazing photo of Alex that he put out there. I watched a bunch of videos. I did not remember his endurance racing with a hand steering wheel control, full controls on the steering wheel, but I do now that I saw it. And he drove for Chip Ganassi, which is, gold standard in kart. And Chip Ganassi put out some things, some news as well. And when we retweeted Jamie Price's note, Chip Ganassi liked it, which is crazy because Chip Ganassi is like famous.
Is that a person or a team?
He's a person. Well, he has Chip Ganassi Racing. Is
okay.
His team, but he Chip Ganassi saw our note. Anyway, enough about that. The point is Alex Zanardi, just a tremendous person on every front, on everything he did. And he will be very much missed.
Yeah, I didn't know. I literally just knew him for his Formula One. So everything else that kind of poured out, I was like, "Oh wow!" Didn't know any of that. So yeah, like you say, very sad. Okay, moving on. Formula One. If you want to know that it's growing in America, you can now almost find an F1 fan anywhere. I was on the train back. I was on the Amtrak coming back from New York this week. There was a guy next to me. I don't even know how we got into Formula One because as he closed his laptop lid, he had 2 stickers on there, one for the Beatles, one for Green Day. I was like, That's two very different music styles. So we got chatting music, and then somehow, somewhere in there,
Beatles, Green
talking
Day,
only
Formula One.
music. Yeah, just bizarrely, music turned into Formula One. He said actually he's into it, but his son is even into it even more. So, and then he asked, do you like it? And I was like, well, now you've really opened a can of worms
boy.
because now I'm going to have to tell you about the podcast. So he gave us a follow. He's going to pass it on to his son because his son's the big fans. And I said, well, Jeremy, what's the name of your son? He said, Andy. I said, well, Jeremy and Andy, thank you for listening and welcome to the Dirty Side. And I did promise a shout out. There it is. Consider it delivered.
Now, the question I have is, after talking Jeremy's ear off on the train, did he jump out when the train slowed down at a station, or did he wait for full speed and do it?
I got off first because he was going all the way to Boston. I got off at New Haven.
Jeremy, I'm sorry that Rob was seated near you.
Let me get one where this one I'm going to ask a question of you here, Brian. So Honda could be set for extra help from Formula One to recovery from rival manufacturers. We've all talked about this additional development opportunities, but they're saying there's scope for even more than that. There's a huge recovery task in front of Aston Martin. So discussions have taken place this week between F1 bosses and manufacturers about whether Honda might be able to have even more ability to catch up. Now, what I don't get is is it just because you've got a bad engine you're allowed to do extra development on your engine? Because really, Aston are hanging out there with Caddy. Caddy are kind of keeping close to Aston at the moment.
Yep.
So people keep talking about, well, Aston need all this help. It's like, did Caddy get any? Because if you're saying that you're so far behind the rest of the pack, well, you're right there alongside Caddy. So I don't quite sure how this works out. Do they just look at the engine in isolation and basically say, well, Caddy, you're okay because you've got Ferrari engine.
I think so.
It's your aero that's screwed.
I think that's it. I think it is the engine. I think it is the engine opportunity and time and cost cap relief for engine development. And like you say, Caddy's got the Ferrari engine, and the Ferrari engine looks okay. And so
I don't get it. If the idea of this is to help people at the back develop to concertina the pack back up again, why do you care where your deficiency is? That's what I'm getting to.
Totally with
weird.
You. They've singled out the fact though that a lot of these teams aren't developing the engine. They're customers.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a little bit of aspect of we didn't build it, we bought it, and it's broken, and you got to help us. But I'm with you. No matter what you have a problem with, it kind of seems a little bit like we made the rules, but boy, did you really screw up, so we're going to give you a hall pass, and you can go out and work on it overnight. Really?
This one, we got F1 and Golf colliding. Who saw this coming? So McLaren Golf formally launched this week, and Justin Rose will be playing with their clubs at the PGA Tour Cadillac Championship. And in the words of their press release, McLaren want to extend McLaren's DNA by moving into golf. I came up with the best dad F1 golf mashup joke here. Said it makes sense that McLaren want to do this because they know a lot about drivers.
I'm going to let that one go. I did see that as well, and I moved on. So I'm happy you put it in there because I would not have. A SAP stat, a very cool achievement. This Sunday in Miami, Valtteri will become only the 14th F1 driver to start 250 races. That is amazing. And there is an article we'll talk about later in Cadillac Corner where Valtteri talks about his origin into F1, some of which we talked about on this here pod with Valtteri, which I'll save the sound effect for later. But
save it for later.
Save it for them.
And I promise a shout here because I stole this off Daniel Valente's Threads account, and I said, "It's such a good stat. We're going to do it in the podcast this week and give you a shout out while we do it." So look at this. We're just throwing the shout outs around this week.
We are.
You get a shout out. You get a shout out. You get a shout out.
You know what we also get? We get the video vault. I want to get to the weekend. So the weekend was jam packed. But in new fashion, we have 3 steps on the video vault podium. Inside the vault itself, number 3 step, 24 Hours in Monaco with Liam Lawson on the Visa Cash App RB F1 AlphaTauri Minardi team. It's nearly 14 minutes. It's long. It was fun. I enjoyed it because, Rob, you and I have both been to Monaco, so I was trying to catch landmarks and went in there by harbors, and I'm like, oh, I was there. I will say this. Every driver has their little picadillos. When Max is interviewed, he tugs on the corner of his cap. You can watch him. It's a nervous thing or whatever. So he grabs his cap and adjusts just the corner. Lewis messes with his left ear like he's having trouble hearing. George tosses the microphone back and forth. Like all these, I notice these things. Liam likes his chain. He has a chain that hangs out over his shirt, and it's always there. No matter what Liam's doing, his chain is hanging out. So it was big style in Monaco. And if you ever see Liam and he doesn't have his chain hanging out, you can call me on it. But if he does,
Is it an indestructible one? Because
you can't break the chain.
You can never break the chain. That's what I heard.
I knew where you were going. Second step, IBM and Scuderia Ferrari HP present a tribute to the Tifosi on the IBM channel. The Sapman's algorithms know no bounds. It's nearly 5 minutes. I quite like this. Charles and Lewis walking through a display of Tifosi, of Ferrari love, and stories about people's passion for Ferrari. And you could actually see Charles like wearing the responsibility of being a Ferrari driver, heavy, and so it was pretty powerful. But the work I do, 9 hours in, and this thing only had 700 views, and I was one of them. So, do not sleep on the Sapman's YouTube algorithm. And then finally, on the top step, Mercedes and McLaren drivers duel in a remote-controlled challenge. F1 stars versus tiny cars on the Formula One channel. 12 minutes. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. They made a course in a garage, and they gave the McLaren and Mercedes drivers a remote control car. They had to run the course with this, and they got penalties for hitting things. And I'm not going to spoil it because it was as good as the race today. I loved it. So go check it out. If you got 12 minutes, I promise you will like it. Rob, you cool if I close it?
Close it up. Okay, so as we hit practice, one of the first things we need to talk about is we saw two special liveries which had been dropped during the week. We had the yellow V-carb and we had the caddy with kind of the black and white American flag on the back and some other bits and pieces. And it's always nice to see, does it translate to the track or not? Now, you didn't like the yellow V-carb when they launched the press photos, right? Because they did that. I thought it looked good, but they did a weird decision of launching a yellow car on a yellow background, which was a bit strange.
Even if it had been on a different background, I didn't dislike it. I said it was okay, I believe is what I said. I said that onto the Discord. I'm like, it's all right. I'm going to hold my what it looks like on track for when practice starts, but I thought it was medium. I did like the caddy.
We're in practice now, so just say it.
Loved it on track. Loved it. I was explaining to my wife the history of yellow cars and some famous ones in F1, and she fell asleep instantly. And so for anyone who doesn't want to have sleeping problems, call me. But no, I loved it when it was under speed. My problem was it looked a little too busy at rest.
Well, we said the V-carb did anyway, didn't we?
Yes. So it was exactly the same problem I had with the V-carb, just yellow. But now on the track, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, it's nice to have a yellow car back on track. And I started getting a little bit giddy in practice because cars all seem to be very, very close to Mercedes, like McLaren, Ferrari. They were all kind of getting Max. They were all up there. And I'm like, okay, am I reading far too much into practice? Are we going to get our hopes dashed as soon as we get to sprint quali? We'll kind of hold that. We had Aston had electrical issues that they were fighting off all weekend. Well, not all weekend, all first part of the weekend.
Right, they couldn't get out.
God, this is going to be another weekend to completely forget for Aston. But...
Well, the best part is they publish who brought what. And so I was, as I'd already said, even in the preview video, I was on the McLaren hype train. And I was all aboard, choo-choo, conducting the train because they brought 6 performance upgrades. Mercedes only brought 2. Everyone keeps saying, wait for Mercedes. All the raft of upgrades comes in Canada. So, all right, we'll watch. Red Bull brought 6. Ferrari brought 11. And, Rob, I know you were really excited about that. Williams had 7, which we'll talk about in the race because, boy, they got double points. V-Carb at 6, Haas 1, Audi 2, Cadillac 9, Alpine 6, and Aston Martin 0. All they did was fix the good vibrations to make them stop. And they finished 2 cars. So, you got to start somewhere, right? The journey to anywhere has a first step. And I think that was Aston Martin's, is that you can no longer, Lance and Fernando don't get out of the car with their hands, shaking anymore. So,
yeah, so I guess that gets counted as a fix rather than an upgrade. They obviously changed something. To get rid of the vibrations, right? But not good enough to be considered an upgrade. It was just a defect fix.
There was a little button in the back that says vibrations on, off. They flipped it to off. Give that a try this
Then
week.
we saw Red Bull had bought one of those upgrades was their Macarena wing, which just opened so wide that Crofty kept going on about how you could basically stick your head through
Weren't you
the
with
back
him
of the
though? You
wing.
couldn't even see the wing when it was open. It was like, oh my
You
God, is
could.
it
It was that
gone?
top bit.
It was
The only reason the only
very
reason you
thin,
could
pencil
understand that it
thin.
was yeah, I know, but the only way you can express how wide the hole was is the hole needs to have a top and a bottom. If you couldn't see the wing, it would have just been, oh, where did it go?
I thought it
But
was
no, I know
great.
what you mean. I know what you
Yeah.
mean. It was we had less drop off on the onboards. It didn't look like they were losing too much before the end of the main straight, which was cool. And nobody could take turn one. That was kind of really the key takeaways from practice because everyone just locked up big style into turn one. Like they forgot it was
Huge.
there time after time after time.
It was unbelievable. They hit that dip, and then as they were coming out of it, they just showed everyone in succession. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
Everyone locking up. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, anyway. So then we get to sprint quali. We get to sprint quali in SQ1, and we're watching people get their laps going in the first half of quali for the sprint. And right in turn one, Lance locks it up. Was it 1 or 17? Now I'm because I've had
No,
so much
I
action.
think it was 17 because I wrote he
17.
locks it
Yeah,
up, he parks it up, he screws some
it
laps
was
up, and then
17.
he decides to get going again.
It was totally 17. You're right. I remember. I could see it now from the corner cam. And like you say, he locked it up. He parked it up. He screwed up laps, and then he's like, "Yeah, I can do this." And he like bump started it, and he takes off. Everyone had a yellow. He ruined like everybody's lap.
He did. But amongst all that, Lando went and threw an absolute
Oh man.
monster lap. Charles went, I like the look of that. I'll try one of those as well. So those two would just seem to be miles clear. I was like, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
Hang
exactly.
on a minute. Are Mercedes keeping their powder dry for later in SQs, or have we got something that looks a bit closer here? We lost Lawson, Ocon, Perez, Bottas, Alonso, and Stroll. But
You.
then did we? Then the mystery
Oh
began of
my
had
God.
we actually lost Liam Lawson or not?
He was sitting in that car till late Friday night, waiting to get called back out. Yeah, so Albon had a penalty that they were investigating and apparently should not have been running in SQ2. By the time they told anybody, Liam was running back to his car like it was a Le Mans style start. He gets in and he just sits there. But everybody else is out. You can't have 17 people out there. So
Well,
who,
and then they started going, maybe it's Arvid. It could be Ollie. Neither of those have come out yet. And then they kind of eat, oh, yeah, they have. Yeah,
right,
they
they were
have.
just waiting to come out later, and Liam was still stuck in the car. Oh man! Can I just say one thing though that we noticed in SQ1, and this is something Rob picked up on quickly, is there was a delta that began to emerge between the Mercedes, bigger than a lot of the
Hmm.
other teammates. I'm not going to talk about Red Bull, but let's talk about the top teams where it was fairly close. And Kimi was ahead of George by a margin that was noticeable, and
Yeah.
noticeable more than other teams. That happened in SQ1. We get to SQ2, whatever happens, Lawson, the whole Albano investigation, we already did that. But Charles and Oscar look super quick in the first half of SQ2. And so you're starting to think, okay, we got McLarens and Ferraris and Mercedes, but why is George struggling to keep up with Kimi?
Hmm.
And it was fascinating. But we lost the Audis, we lost the Williams, a little 2x2 again. We lost the last Haas and the last Racing Bull. So again, we're going to SQ3. And I got to point this out too. Another theme that emerged. This happened twice in the Q3s. We had 5 teams make it. The 5th team, other than Red Bulls, other than McLarens, other than Mercedes and Ferraris, Alpine. Both
Oh,
Colapinto and the
both of them,
Gasman
yeah.
made SQ3. And this is going to happen again. I'll mention it quickly in Q3. I'm like, whoa, Alpine, what have you done for me lately? I'm liking this.
Yeah. Yeah. And whatever tweaks, like we said about if they make tweaks, will we notice that speed doesn't drop off as much on the straight? And that is harder to sense. You can't really tell from looking at TV unless you've got the onboard.
Right.
I can't tell the difference between them dropping off 10, 15 kilometers per hour or 20, 30. You just can't see it. But what
The
you
sound
can
is
see
what
is
gives it to me.
you can kind of again, but you have to be on board to hear that. When they got
Correct.
the wide shots, you
Right.
can't really sense it. But what you can sense, and I don't know how, I can't describe it, but you can just see visibly when drivers are throwing it around corners looking for any last bit of mechanical grip they can get. And they made these tweaks to try to move quali back to being on the edge. And SQ3, I loved it.
Me
I
too.
mean, Norris finally goes and gets it. Antonelli was close to him. Then we had Piastri, Leclerc, Verstappen, Russell, and all of those, well, maybe not Russell, but all of those drivers had a chance to do it. And it wasn't just about who pressed the right battery button at the right time. It was, I don't know, it just felt good to see cars feeling like they were on the edge again.
I agree. I loved it. It felt like the poor first three qualies we've seen this year were undone by this one, which was a lot of different teams battling. You had a McLaren, a Mercedes, a McLaren, a Ferrari, a Red Bull, four teams in the top five. That's a tremendous thing. And like we talked about, Alpine's up there. It was fun. And I will say this, I felt like you could hear the difference. So on the back straight, which I was lamenting because it's so long into the last corner, yes, there was a dip before the braking zone where you could hear the car at full throttle noticeably roll back a little, but not like it was in Japan. In Japan, it felt like there was a power outage. This was just like, maybe, if the driver, if in previous regs, had just lifted a toe, that's what it felt like, and then brakes. Whereas I was hoping for something like this. It felt better.
It did. And we'll have to see if this is just something that these tweets play nicely to the track attributes of Miami and it's not the same in Canada. But you know what? For a first set of trying to do something different in these regs in quali, it got the seal of approval from me. What didn't get the seal of approval for a lot of people is, again, Aston's pace, and a couple of stats came up. So this one I sent to Brian just with the word ouch on it, because it was F2's Mari Boyer was the fastest Aston Martin driver in Miami today on Friday. He did a 140.554, and Alonso's fastest time in an F1 car was a 141.311.
They did Alonso dirty, by the way, with the picture of him. It looks like he'd taken a swim when they took this shot of him. Also, not just in terms of Aston Martin, but the slowest F2 time in qualifying was a 141.157, and we already said Alonso 141.311. So every F2 car qualified faster than an Aston Martin F1 car. Yeah. Anything else you want to highlight on Alex Albon's adventures, or no?
No, I would say, as it's a sprint weekend, we are lucky and we get three big, I was going to say servings, but I'm going to think of like dollop. We serve it up and we slap it down on the plate. We get three big dollops of pit lane pools. So do you want to crack open the first one? What are you going to do? Music now and then not later?
Music now.
Okay.
And Paul, as always, thank you so much for doing these. Here is Paul's Friday edition.
Hey now, well, Miami, we're back. We're back, first of all. We're back. Back in business. Back. Let's just say we're back. And it's luckily a sprint weekend. The weather forecast looks a bit iffy for later in the week, so it should be quite good fun. But we're going to start with Friday. I don't really have a name. I've not really given us any thought. Miami, Vice. I haven't got one. I'll work on it over the weekend. I feel a little bit sad about that, unless something pops into my mind in the meantime. Anyway, enough. Friday, hour and a half FP1 session. God, scrape my eyes out and stamp on them. Just hell on earth. My free practice, no. New regs, well, not new regs, but changes to the regs, not massively. No one's really panicking about them. It's just, whatever, we're all good. And then sprint qualifying. What happened? Sprint qualifying? Anything? Don't think so. I don't think there's anything major. It's good to be back.
Well, all right. That was the first edition.
So 5 weeks away of being 5 weeks of being away has kind of knocked pit lane Paul off his stride. They couldn't even come up with a name. Well, if he doesn't come up with one in the next two reviews, we're just going to have to go with Dollops, which isn't really pit lane Paul level of.
Nor is it Miami specific.
Well, beggars can't be choosers.
Nope.
Right, okay, then the sprint came around, and let's just say that the Hulk didn't have the best of weekends. Didn't even get to the grid. Engine failure. I think, did it catch fire?
Yeah.
Caught fire, didn't it? Is it on the formation lap? Or
I think it was even the lap to the grid. And,
was it? Oh.
And the reason I know this is I had done I'd worked out and done a few things around the house, took a shower, and I was cutting a little tight to get my fantasy team in. And as I'm sitting there contemplating life, I'd had some thoughts. I knew I wanted some McLaren. I was a little leery of Mercedes. I liked Ferrari. And I'm like, how do I make this work? And I sat there. I took a -10 because I had made 3 changes and I only had 2. And I literally loaded my team in 2 minutes before the deadline. 2 minutes I wasn't watching the TV. 2 minutes before the race I didn't have anything on. I put Hulk in my team. His car was already on fire. I put the guy's car in my fantasy team. It is in fuego. And at this point, I knew the weekend was going to be rough. And then they announce, as I'm like turning it on at the last second for the sprint, Arvid Lindblad is starting from the pit lane. I go, that's great because he's also on my team. So I basically loaded a team of everyone who was going to be terrible for this weekend.
I feel so liberated from like because I've stopped playing it. It just doesn't bother me now. I'm like, yes, it's quite refreshing to not have to worry about the fact that you've messed up your team. So,
and I put in my boy Charles Leclerc, and I was so excited. And then in the race, he decides to do a spin on the very last lap, and I'm like,
don't jump ahead, don't spoil us. You know, there's some people out there looking at you, Jim Moyer, another shout out, that don't watch F1 on Apple TV anymore, and they listen to us. So you got to stop these spoilers for things that we haven't talked about yet.
Well, in 45 minutes, Jim Moyer, I'm going to tell you Charles is about to spin. Anyway, but everyone starts on the mediums almost effectively, and Kimi got a bad start. And
put it in reverse.
Continued his tradition of struggling to get off the line. McLarens and Ferraris had good starts. Oh, it was a unique and fun beginning, I thought, to the sprint.
Yeah, it was. It's a bit like every sprint ever. We get a good sprint every now and again, but in the main, the sprint is chaos for the first 3 or 4 laps while everyone tries to make some early moves. And then everybody kind of almost, you can see this thing that dawns on all the drivers saying, right, just don't do anything too stupid and bin it because we've got quali in 10 minutes.
Exactly.
So all this kind of places we would see people throw cars down the inside today in the race, no one's doing any of that in the sprint. They're like,
no.
I really need to be fully alongside before I even consider this. So let's just all follow each other around. But
I mean, it's less points, and like you say, the risk is great. And if we all remember when the sprint started, for anyone who may be new, some drivers, like the gas man, would go for it. And he went for it in Monza, I specifically remember, and had a massive crash and then totally compromised the rest of his weekend. And everyone's like, yeah, maybe we should be more careful.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say we didn't have action. We did in those first few laps. We had Kimi on Charles. I think it was lap 7. George took Kimi, but then Kimi took George back. And then Lewis and Max both went off the track, and Max took Lewis. So surely he was going to have to give that back, which he did. And then Max got Lewis again. And then it kind of all sort of settled down. We had one part of excitement was there was a bit of loose bodywork. It's like, we're going to get a safety car now. And so Ollie went, hold my beer, I'll clear this up, boys. And he just ran over this thing and it just obliterated into dust. It was like, yeah, there's none of that left now to even clear up.
I'll take care of that. I never thought of it that way. But yeah, he did, and it was gone. And I'm like, all right. George and Kimi going back and forth. Kimi gets George back. Lewis and Max. Max, by the way, elbows out this weekend. His whole family was there watching him, and he decided, you know what I'm going to do in all the races this weekend? I'm going to run people off the track. But not in an egregious Liam Lawson chains out type way. Much more like just, I'm still Max, and I'm going to take this corner, and it's my corner, and I'm going to run you off the road because it's my corner. And he's right. He's within the rules.
Yeah,
but he makes sure that the person he's racing against has no chance.
It's like he's got this like little book of personas that he comes into a race with. I'm like, let me just flick through this. Which one are we getting today? Oh, feisty Max.
The whole weekend. And
elbows out. We have to put to setting 11.
So then on lap 10, Max gets Lewis. It looked kind of like DRS. You already talked about the bodywork. Then we saw Noah's Ark, Haas's and Williams battling for 12th 2x2. Then they boxed, was it Albon on lap 14 for a new front wing? Like, who cares at this point?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
14
why
and 19.
waste a front wing, right? You're not going to do anything. It's like...
all you're doing is wasting a front wing at this point. It's like more test sessions for Williams.
Exactly. If you crash now, you just, 2 front wings have gone, so... And then we got this weird thing where me and Brian we don't really know what we saw, and we never saw a replay of it to know what happened. But the camera switched at a moment where basically looked like Isaac was about to crash into the back of Colapinto.
Right. High closing speed, it appeared.
it appeared, and it was like, whoa, what does that? And then it was like, well, was it just the moment they picked to, had he been lining that move up and like cruising up on him
Right.
and then just pulled out and we overreacted? We don't know. Never saw a replay of that, so
No
we have
clue.
no clue what happened.
It was either closing at a rate of knots or he was just making his move and they cut to it right as he did it. Regardless, Kimi got a 5-second penalty for track limits, lost 2 places. I was very excited because Lando finished first, Oscar finished second, and my predictions that McLaren might be back looked good. More importantly, for all of us, it feels like someone else can win a race now other than Mercedes. And it was like a freeing feeling. You had Charles third, so you're like, oh, Ferraris too? And I'm like, I like this. But I thought it was so boring after the first 2 or 3 laps. And there were a couple battles.
Classic sprint.
Yeah, I know, but like for me, there was no yo-yos, and I was banking on the yo-yo from all the previous races. And the analogy I would use here, food fans, is I had purchased some grocery store chili. Now you may say, "Sapman, that's your first mistake." Yeah, and so it came in a little tub, a little small tub of chili, and I was desperate. I needed something, and so I warmed it up, and charitably, it was beef stew. It had all the ingredients of chili, but it wasn't chili. And this sprint race had all the ingredients of a good race. It just wasn't good. And so that was my version of what I was watching, was a horrible grocery store chili.
I just saw a normal sprint. Action at the beginning, nothing else throughout. It was classic sprint. Like no worse, no better than any previous sprints. We often have this discussion about. Anyway, interesting point then, because one of the big things that I liked about the race when we get later to talk about it was the lack of the consistent yo-yoing.
Correct.
The stuff that was driving us mad in the first 3 races.
But we had
so
more
you
overtaking.
wanted yo-yoing.
Well, I was looking for overtaking.
fair
Not necessarily
enough.
pure yo-yos, but just give me someone going by somebody. We had like 3 battles and 3 corners for one lap.
No one ever risks it in a sprint. That's the big underlying flaw of sprint racing.
Someone put some more curry and chili powder and some chocolate in there and make it a better chili next time.
We need to get this analogy overboard. Throw Stapp a lifeline. Yeah. But anyway,
back in the sweet shop with Crofty.
Oh gosh, don't go back there. Right, quali came around. I mean, not a lot in Q1. There was a lot of almost drama, like Piastri hanging out in 16th. Will he make it through or not? Yeah, he did. So we kind of lost Bortoletto, the Caddies, the Aston Martins, and Lindblad. So it was probably a highly predictable, despite the kind of threatened drama. Q1 was kind of pretty sort of.
Yeah, it was good, though. Like, we had fast laps occurring, and we were watching the bottom, so it was still entertaining. And then, interestingly, in Q2, McLaren's kind of rolled back a little bit more from even Q1, and you and I were like, what happened from, 2 hours ago when they won?
They've forgotten?
1-2?
Yeah, like, hey, I'm going to, in qualifying, we just came 1-2 in the sprint, so we've totally got this track nailed. This is Lando talking to Oscar, I imagine. He said, should we just try something different in Q2, like try completely different lines and maybe, not accelerate as hard? It was like they suddenly forgot. Like you say, it was literally, it's not even overnight. It was literally 2 hours ago. You just dominated the sprint. Where's all your pace gone?
Hadn't rained, track wasn't green, nothing had happened. It's almost as though McLaren and Open Park Ferme said, change anything? They said, nah, let's go get lunch. And they left it. And everyone else is like, wait, a little tweak of wing, let's change the suspension setting here, let's change the aero here. And everyone else came out aggressive, and McLaren's like, wait, that was a heavy burger. I'm going to be back in the back. Oscar's 16th, almost not making it through. But don't worry, they'll come back. So we lost the Williams, the Haas, Hulk, and Lawson. But again, as I said, I would reference, ending Q2, going into Q3, Alpines are the 5th team, both of them. So 5 teams, 10 drivers, Colapinto and Pierre Gasly. What?
Whisper it, but we have not seen Crasher Pinto once this year. He is actually maturing into a pretty good driver. He's lost that kind of raggedness that was putting him into the wall all the time last year.
Yeah.
And look, it's dragging his Alpine into Q3 twice.
Agreed. Although I think you could ask Lewis that question, he would disagree with what he does to him in the race. But it wasn't too bad.
I'm not sure. Well, there was no penalty given, so it's a racing incident.
Yeah, I'll agree. But it's not as though he... Anyway... So then we get to Q3, and, I love the way that most people qualify in most of these sessions. You get kind of 2 big drives. The first one, which is most people will call your banker lap, get something solid in, and then press it on your second one. And Kimi came out and said, banker, bankers are for losers. And he put in an absolute unbelievable monster lap and just blew the doors off everyone. And it almost felt like you'd feel all the other top drivers look at that and go, oh, crap.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've been seeing really low 128s.
Yep.
And people were saying we'll probably see a high 127 maybe in get pole. I'm going to take almost 3/10 off that. I'm going to do a 127.7. Okay, it was nearly a 127.8, but wow. And then out of nowhere, Max went, I've got this. He goes and throws in a 127 as well. It was just great runs. It was just kind of Charles, Max, Lando, George, all of them kind of came around. Coming through to the line, I thought, well, then maybe Russell's going to get this. Can he find the same pace as Antonelli? And this is what we referred to earlier. So you had Leclerc is on a 128.1 and he gets third. Hamilton's on a 128.3, so 2/10. 2/10. I mean, I'm sure an F1 driver will say that's a mile, but 2/10 ain't too bad. Norris and Piastri were a 128.1 to a 128.5. So that one is actually
almost a 128.2.
It's almost a 128.2. So that's kind of a 3/10. But George is almost half a second, isn't he? It's 127.7 to a 128 almost
it's 4,
2.
It's 4/10 at least.
It's 4 and a bit. 4 and change. Russell just never looked on it this weekend. It could be the track. There was some weird, I don't know when it happened because I heard it online, but Koto gave an interview that said, George doesn't like tracks that are too smooth.
I didn't hear this. Seriously?
What? Yeah. It's like, what? And then he was trying to compare it, or maybe Brundle or somebody was comparing it, saying like that's like kind of tennis players like, well, I like red grass and I like hard court, but I don't like grass. It's yes. But anyway, whatever it was, George just didn't look close. So we ended up with Antonelli on pole yet again, Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Piastri, Colapinto out qualifying the gas man, Hadjar, and then the gas man. So,
loved it.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great quali, and I thought it was a great Saturday. And I was like, I'd moved on from the grocery store chili, and I'm thinking, I'm back, baby. Let's see what Paul had to say about Saturday.
Ugh, hey, no. Okay. Yeah, Saturday. It didn't start well. I mean, I won't lie. Woke up and a car was missing, so that was an interesting one.
What?
So I suppose I could call these the thefts of Miami. That was what I call it. The thieves of Miami. No idea really what happened there. Well, I do. Someone stole the car. It's a weird one. That's life. No one's injured. It's the main thing. Well, I don't think. The Saturday. Sprint race. Usual sprint race. No real drama. Nothing really. Actually, quite surprised to see McLaren actually power through as much as they did. I was quite, I can't say it came out of nowhere because that's not fair when you're defending champions, but you know what I mean. It was sort of like it was like it's weird to see Mercedes struggle as well after being like dominant team. So this break could actually shifted things up a little bit quite randomly. So yeah, I mean, okay, can we call it a shock? Lando Norris, the reigning world champion, winning a sprint race. Can we call it a shock? No, I don't think we can. I think it's too early in the season to call it a shock. I think what it does do is sets the rest of it up to be quite nice. So we'll ignore that and we'll just move straight on to qualifying, where again it was a bit, Kimi gets it on pole, which, I mean, I guess we could probably say is kind of expected, as it was third in a row, is it? I think someone said. Yep. I suppose your shock is George being there, but then George has been nowhere all weekend, so I guess that's probably fair. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's all immaterial, because I really think tomorrow's going to be the weather tomorrow is going to be absolutely dog, so I'm quite interested how we actually look by tomorrow in terms of the weather and all these sort of things. So it could be an absolute disaster tomorrow. It could be that we don't actually have a race at all. The rain here in Miami is normally pretty bad. So let's see. But it's good to be back. It's good to be back. We're back. We're back, aren't we? Time for a shower. Very, very moist.
The rain in Key Biscayne falls mainly on the pit lane.
So what Paul was referring to there was that there were huge thunderstorms being predicted for the original race time, and then not long after, what was it? Quite late last night, wasn't it? They kind of and then announced
8-ish, something like that.
Yeah,
Central.
Enough time, I guess, for fans and everybody else to kind of sort their lives out and make changes to their daily plans because they decided to pull the race forward to 1 p.m. local so that we could hopefully get the race in and done before the rain came. It absolutely smashed it down between 9 and 10 a.m. in Miami. There were some pictures of the pit lane, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be underwater by the time the race starts. But thankfully, Miami does what Miami does, and the sun came out, and it was pretty dry by the time the grid walk was going on. Now, the grid walk, actually, first, before we go to the grid walk, Paul's sort of happy to be back, but doesn't sound like he's enjoying himself that much. But then maybe that could be down to having his car stolen today as well. So I hope that all worked out okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the grid walk, I was braced here because like Miami's had a little bit of a checkered past with kind of different celebrities they bring on, and I'm going to go in reverse order. First off, there was a dude, you'd know him, Brian. I don't because basketball means nothing to me, but there was a guy from the Miami Heat.
I missed it. Do you remember who it was? Was it Bam Adebayo? By any chance?
Guy that was about 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
And Martin went up to him, kind of had to get on a step to kind of hold his microphone up to talk to him. And he didn't try to do, I was encouraged by this guy because he didn't try to do that kind of bluffing your way through, because you can't bluff your way through this sport. If you don't know anything about it,
right,
you don't know anything about it, right? And he said, oh, who are you rooting for today? And he was like, this is my first ever race, so I'm just going to watch the race and see who basically makes me a fan of them. It's like, nice. Okay, good. Because prior to that, DJ Khaled had been on the pit walk and talked utter nonsense. I have no idea what he was talking about, trying to be all deep and meaningful. Martin didn't have any clue what was going on either. And then to get his mates over and show what a popular guy he was on the grid, he goes, hey, Team Red Bull, get over here, get over here. These two ladies kind of like shuffle across looking a little bit awkward because they're from Visa, Racing Bulls, Cash App, whatever. And blatantly wearing the yellow things that say, you know, Racing Bulls on the front. And he's like, yeah, here I am. Let's go, Team Red Bull, Red Bull, Red Bull. And Martin's like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to bail from this because that's not Red Bull.
I missed
that. Kind of related, but...
I missed that, thankfully. But you're right, Miami does have a history. It was Martin.
But the young girl that did the anthem, oh my gosh, she could only have been 11 years old, and she was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, first of all, she nailed it. Her voice was amazing in front of that huge crowd, and then the flyover was tremendous. But I will say, it was years ago, Martin interviewed Paolo Banchero, who plays for the Orlando Magic, and called him Patrick Mahomes. That was the famous...
That's right.
That was Miami. I'm fairly confident. By the way, I just realized we made a tactical mistake recording this right after the race. The Orlando Magic, Paolo Banchero, are in Game 7 of Round 1 against the Detroit Pistons, and it tipped off 30 minutes ago. So I should be watching that because it's been a great series. But enough about the NBA.
It's basketball. It can't possibly have been any good.
I actually influenced the last game by eating Detroit-style pizza one night.
Stop sharing baskets, everyone. There's too many of them. Anyway, let's...
So we then decided to see how much race could we get in. As we're getting ready for the start, everyone's on mediums except for Isaac, who's starting on hards from the pit lane, I think. And so as we look at it, Rob and I are debating what will happen with the rain. And I was very happy. We'll just get it out of the way now. No matter how many times they kept saying 5 laps from now, 10 laps from now in turn 7, 14 laps from now for 1 lap of medium rain level 2, we saw none. Like maybe a drizzle for half a second. That was it.
And they made such a good decision bringing that forward because
totally.
I believe it has actually started raining pretty hard there now. So, yeah. Well done to the organisers for doing that. What annoyed me, though, was all the stuff online going, oh, why can't Miami race in the rain? Are they scared of a bit of rain, like raining on all the inflows? It's like, it's nothing to do with rain, people. It's lightning. But never mind. Let's not go over that again. Right. So then the other debate was, we were having a little bit of fun on WhatsApp of like, how many spots does Kimi lose? It's like the new game to play. We should turn it into a casino game. How many spots does Kimi lose at the start? And Brian nailed it. I always like to beat up on Brian when he gets things wrong. But on the thing, he said, I think Kimi will be okay. I think Max will be okay. But I think
Lando and Charles.
Two was it? Lando and Charles will nail it. I was like, that sounds pretty good. And that's exactly what happened. Kimi was okay. He didn't go into reverse.
Right.
Pulled away, but just not as fast as the other two that went past him. Max tried to get his elbows out, as we talked about, setting number 11, where he decided to go violently over to the right to cut off Lando.
Did you see what Lando had to do? He had to not only let off the gas, he had to hit the brakes. I mean, that was crazy.
And then if anybody wants to debate Max Verstappen's skill behind holding onto a car, we see Max Verstappen do a 360. And I'm now thinking, well, he's out because
Massive
even if
pileup.
there's going to be a massive pileup here because his car's spinning around. It's the beginning. Like they're all coming at a rate of knots. Someone's going to collect him, and I think he basically kind of like adjusted his cap, like you said, with one hand, and with the other hand he just kind of straightened it up and caught it. I was like, what just happened? How's Max still in this race?
Brundle was speechless. Now you can't give the man credit for the big save if you also don't give him credit for the spin, which was his fault.
No. But
Yeah, but
you can give him credit for the save.
Yeah, you have to because it was epic. I thought Charles and him had contact when I first saw that. I'm like, there's no Max Verstappen is a driving robot sent from the future. He doesn't make mistakes. So Charles must have hit him. And then when you showed the onboard, no, he just got on the throttle too hard too soon.
Yeah.
And spun. How'd he not hit anyone? How'd no one hit him? And how'd he save that car, pointed in the right direction, power out of it? And I'm like, dang, that was wild.
Kimi ran deep into the first corner and looked to come back into it and saw all this mess going on and just went, you know what, I'm just going to stay off track out here and see what happens. Not only see what happens, he emerges almost in the lead because Charles goes flying through. At first I thought Kimi was leading, but then when the camera angle changed, you could see Charles was. I guess they're going to put that down to a Turn 1 incident because Kimi's so far off, he's almost in Tampa. He's just kind of like,
he was
I'm
totally
going to drive over here and avoid all the mess. What else did we have? We had, like you said, Colapinto and Lewis collided, so we had carbon fiber going everywhere. Max threw it up the inside of Sainz, and then Albon decided to come through and go, well, I'll have both of you two. But Max was like, not on my watch. And this was going to happen lots today. People that looked like they'd made overtakes, but the other car was fighting back, but it felt more natural today. It didn't feel like battery yo-yo. I'm going to say it right now. We're only on the first corner. But today, all the overtakes felt a lot more earned. They didn't even feel DRS breeze by-ish. People seem to be working out the battery strategy of like, I actually might let you buy at this point because then I'm going to take you back later. But it was planned rather than like Lando had moaned in Japan about like, I don't want to overtake someone. Here it actually felt because Crofty kept saying it. I think people are kind of like almost enticing people to take them into 17.
Right.
Because then I'm going to charge after you into
and
one.
I'll have overtake because the yellow line is just past corner 17, and I'll have overtake for the whole lap, but I'll grab you on the straight into turn 1, and then I'll have the overtake for the rest of the lap, and you're behind me. And so you're right. It became a pretty good battle, and as people were using their batteries down the straight, a lot of good battles into 17, a lot of good battles into turn 1. Max decided to do some things in the S's I've never seen anyone do before. He's like, well, I'm just going to go here. And I'm going to take you in this spot no one's ever passed before in Miami. And I'm like, wow. And so it was great. But yeah, by lap 3, George gets Oscar for 4th. We saw Isaac up to 16th from the pit lane start. We had a battle for the lead again. Kimi and Charles going back and forth into turn 17. Kimi almost got Charles, then goes into 17. Then Charles gets him back on lap 5. And then Martin Brundle does my favorite thing. He's trying to remember the word megajoules, which we were having fun with last week here. And he's like, the mega minis. And Martin
scrambling for a word that he knew was stored in the back of his brain somewhere. He's going through cabinets in his brain. What's the right term for this? And I swear Crofty knew it right from the beginning, but decided to let him run with it for a bit.
Oh, it was great. And as soon as he figured out it was megajoules, at which point Martin's like, power stuff. Isaac did a Monaco where into that chicane on the back of the track, the crazy baller that Max hit a couple years ago that allowed Lando to win, he hits the wall on the turn in. And it's just like the post swimming pool corner. Just past the swimming pool Monaco, you got to take it at serious speed, and you got to rub your tire against it. Otherwise, you're going to lose time. Well, Isaac decided he was going to do two things. He was going to get a little too close, break his wheel, and then punch the ever-living crap out of his steering wheel in frustration. I've never seen a guy get so angry at himself the way Isaac does. We love him. We are big Isaac fans here on the Dirty Side. But that was a full-on temper tantrum. Like that wasn't even, there was no other words for it.
I wrote in the notes. Good to see Hadjar being totally fine with accepting that he's out of the race. It was like it was in the car. He smashed the crap out of the steering wheel a few times. Then when he got out, he smashed his the car again. And then the side shot as he was walking away, he's like punching himself in the helmet. I'm like, okay, maybe just like they said on the commentary, maybe this is just how he gets out of his system.
And then, as though that isn't enough, we're waiting for the safety car because everyone's still going around. It's early on. They're all kind of bunched up. So they're determining what to do. We cut to a sideways angled Pete Gasly, and he quickly radios in, "I'm okay." I'm like, well, it doesn't look that bad. He spun out and went up the barrier a little bit. No. He flipped. He did a barrel roll in the Alpine. It was crazy to see. Lawson had his chain out, and as he's going around the corner, he kind of just honestly slid into the gas, man. It was not intentional.
Up, didn't he?
Right,
he just locked up, and he was just a passenger going into Gasly.
And he didn't hit him that hard. It's just his front wheel hit Gasly's back wheel, and one's spinning this way, and one's turning this way, and then boom, when they come together, they both kind of get ejected. Unfortunately for Pete, he was upside down for a bit.
By the way, for anybody that wasn't listening when that came up, when did the word Pete? It was a mistake on the commentary. Was it? Was it Brundle called him Pete Gasly?
It was like in a qualifying, called him Pete Gasly.
Good old Pete. So then Lawson retired. Hulk went into the pits 3,000 times and then parked up.
He did.
Max and Bottas went in at this point under the safety car just to sort of mix it up a bit, see what they could do for strategy. And then we had a moment that I do hope our friends over at the midfield have cropped out that they can play. They've always been on about how Max Verstappen is always kind of talking trash about the midfield, and I think it was Carlos Sainz has got like this gold for them, which was something like, "Oh, he always comes around here, thinks he can do whatever he likes just because he's racing the midfield." I'm like, there is your soundbite, guys. Go get it, use it, abuse it. Lap 11, the safety car was ending, and it was like, what? How far is he going to go before he shoots off here? There's been a trend recently. They go all the way around to the start line because they're going to go all the way around. Oh, he's gone.
But he didn't go on the back straight. It was like coming out of the corner, kind of, and everyone.
Yeah, it was just so funny. They were mid-explaining why the trend has been to go all the way around and almost get to the start line. They almost missed him go. And then we saw, well, we completely screwed up here because we got it the wrong way round. We saw Piastri get George. I thought he was actually defending a position that George was trying to overtake him.
As did I.
And then, as did you, because I saw it in the notes that you wrote. And I was like, but actually, I wasn't really paying attention to who's behind who at the safety car restart. And then we're writing the notes. I think this was a really great defense from Piastri when the commentary team went, "No, that was a pass for position," as if they were watching our notes. We were like, okay, we better change this.
So by lap 13, we had Charles in front of Lando, Kimi, Oscar, George, Lewis, Colapinto, Alex, and Sainz. And then Ollie Behrman in the points. So we had two Williams by lap 13 already in the points. My spidey sense hadn't noticed it. I just wrote the order. But I'm like, all right, here we go. And then this is why I think the race was so good. It was exciting. We had tough battling to start. We had the safety car restart. And immediately after the safety car restart, Lando gets Charles. Then Kimi gets Charles into the braking zone on 17. But then Charles gets him back at the first corner. And then Kimi's back again, but Charles is not letting go. They're going back and forth. And then they cut away from this battle, and on lap 16, Lewis is all over George, despite all the damage to the side of his car. And then Rob somehow noticed at the bottom that Valtteri got Alonso, but we didn't see it. On the
little timing board, I just saw the little flip around. I'm like, is that maybe a one and only overtake in the race here? But or has Alonso got the vibrations back? But yeah, it was just like you say. And then at this point, I was like, "Ooh, is Lando checking out here? Is this the repeat of the sprint?" Because out of nowhere, the restart's like about a lap ago, and suddenly he's 2.4 seconds clear. I'm like, "Ooh!" And then Piastri gets Charles, and I thought, "Oh, okay, this is the McLaren's just disappearing off into the distance like the sprint." But Charles gets him straight back, and I'm like, "Oh, this is just so good." Max renewed his rivalry with Alex from earlier on in the race, and they both decided to get their elbows out. Alex was like, "Well, if you can get your elbows out, sir, look at this pair."
Would you like me to run you into the pit lane? And Max is all angry about it. He almost ran me into the pit lane, Ballard. Hello? Are you looking in a mirror? I mean, that's what you do, brother. And so at this point, we're kind of getting towards the middle of the race. People are starting to think about boxing, but they're also worried about the rain. And so by lap 19, no one's really sure, is it time to pit? But no one wants to then have to pit again to go to inters if it starts raining. And then 21, George pits for hards. And one little note, as George pits and we start the pit stops, there was an announcement that Max is under investigation for crossing the pit lane exit line as he left the pits. And Martin makes the usually very astute comment that this type of investigation is often a slam dunk because it's the same thing Valtteri gets done for later, speeding in the pit lane. You either did it or you didn't. And usually it's cut and dry. There's no need to talk to anybody. You have video evidence or speedometer evidence, telemetry evidence, and it's done. But they decide to investigate after the race. And so, Rob, I see you looking at something in your glasses reflection. Are you checking for any updates?
Yeah, no updates so far.
Darn
the only
it.
thing that's on the live feed at the moment is a big thunderstorm cloud over the track.
So we still don't know
we don't
because
know.
there's an
We still don't
investigation
know.
after the race.
Yeah,
Why after the race?
It's like you say, you have cameras. There's a line on the floor. He did or he didn't. Anyway, we both get off our little soapbox and watch the pits happen. So Charles does the same to cover off George. He's going to come out ahead of him. It's all been timed out perfectly, apart from the fact they had a slow stop. 3.7 seconds, which in F1 is a nightmare. Should be 2. He comes out behind George, just about. They almost collide as he comes out. And it's fair to say, Brian, on team radio, Charles wasn't the biggest fan of the decision to bolt.
I love when he's like, you guys were talking about it. No one asked me. Why don't you ask me? I'm here too. It's literally said, I'm here too. Yeah.
It's like the person at a party that complains that they weren't around when the pizza order was being put in, and then the pizza turns up like, this one, why did anybody ask me what pizza topping I want? But then Charles went after George, and this is just where George's whole weekend, although he's going to get some massive good luck towards the end in terms of where he finally finishes,
Right.
but George was clearing traffic, the back markers. Now, normally what happens there is car A overtakes a back marker, puts that back marker between them and the car chasing them, and the one behind usually either stays at the same kind of rate behind the car, or maybe falls a little bit further behind if they don't quite clear the back markers. Charles was 2 seconds behind George. I remember seeing it. It was like maybe 1.8 or something like that. They go through a selection of 2 back markers, and suddenly I see that Charles is half a second behind George. So I don't know what happened. Either George, I think we saw it later in the race, actually. Maybe George had a hard time getting past a back marker. It was Alonso, I think, later in the race that held somebody up and then was completely out the way for the next car.
Well,
maybe it was that, but...
It was later in the race, you're right, but it was the different one. But it was the same idea. It's where you let somebody by. You can't, if you're in the S's, it's a little hard to pull over. You kind of wait till you leave and you move over. But then the guy behind the person you've been holding up has caught up, and you let both through at the same time. You don't intentionally harm the first person's race. It's just not safe to do it in certain places.
Yeah.
And when you do it, sometimes it benefits the front guy, sometimes it benefits the trailing guy. When they pass the back marker. And so you're right. It made it close.
And then we had the moment of the race. If you listen to Lando's after the race's little interview, is that
27, yeah.
Yeah, 27. Kimi pits. He's leading. I think at that point gives the lead to Max, maybe. I can't remember sure who was leading at this point. Maybe it's
Lando
after later when Piastri. Okay. Oh, sorry. He pits. Lando goes into the lead. They respond 1 lap later,
Right.
but the undercut was just too powerful. He already kind of... He didn't quite emerge behind Kimi, but he came out almost alongside, just in front. But Kimi's had 1 lap, warmed up his tyres, and next corner, I think it was, he nailed him. Yeah, right. Then Piastri boxed, and that put Max into the lead. And like you're thinking, I think you wrote in the notes, if it doesn't rain, can Max win this from here? Because he's already pitted.
It was so early. His tires were going to be 50 laps old, I think, or 49 or 48, whatever. Hard tires, hypothetically lasting that long, but we were the softest set of the Pirelli's range, so it was the C3 is the hard. And you're watching this, and I'm wondering, because I still have infinite confidence in Max Verstappen's ability. I'm like, Max may win this thing, and he's out front, but yeah, his tires, for the first time I think in 2026, tires mattered. Whether it was because it was hot or because they were on the soft side of the range or the track or whatever reason, tires mattered this race, which was kind of nice for me.
It was. I can't be giving Pirelli the Pits Award this week, which is good. And then one of the biggest ironies that we got over the weekend is that for a team that is struggling for pace, way off at the back, Bottas gets a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So the one place he went too fast, that's the one place he shouldn't go too fast. So one of the slowest cars gets a speeding fine, which I just find tinged with a hint of irony there. Then we got something that we felt like we could just copy and paste at this point. Lap 31, Charles gets George. And then we're thinking, right, we're gonna probably pace in a minute. George gets him back, because that's all that was happening.
Well, we had both McLarens kind of sitting behind both Mercedes. Kimi was holding off Lando for first, and Oscar was holding off George for sixth. And every time they cut to a McLaren behind a Mercedes, I had to like figure out who it is. I'm like, hold on a minute. Which one of the two are we looking at now? And if they'd put them in the little box and the big box, I would have really been confused. It would have felt like the same thing they were showing. But it just looked like a matter of time before Oscar would get George. And then at lap 35, I finally realized, it finally dawned on me, oh my God, Williams are 9 and 10. There's no one really close behind it. Behrman was like making hay a little bit at one point, but we may see a Williams double points finish, considering they were running test sessions with Alex last time, 46 laps behind. I'm like, wow, the Ozempic
Test
has
session
been
well
working on that
spent.
car.
Yeah. Look, they laughed at us in Japan, did you? So then Oscar finally gets him into one and late break. So I thought, well, that's it now. Oscar's going to drive away. But yeah, this whole kind of depending on how much battery you use and where you position the car, George got him straight back, but then Oscar got him straight back. So, but all of a sudden, and I don't know where this happened. We went from lap 19, we had like 4 cars all within spitting distance of each other, and I didn't know who out of 4 was potentially going to win this race. And then I looked down at the timing board after Oscar had got George and gone, oh, we're in a 2-horse race all of a sudden. It looks like Lando or Kimi, because they're now like 6.8 seconds up the road or something. I lost when that happened. Yeah.
By the end of the race, they were 20 seconds ahead of the cars behind them. And I agree with you. I didn't catch that happening. Charles was creeping up on Max, whose tires were getting old. Oscar was like trying to creep up on Charles. And at this point, Rob basically says it's going to be hard for Max to hang on to third. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're probably right. The tires do seem to be falling off. And they decide... the F1 geniuses on the broadcast decide to stop showing times for many laps. Many laps.
We don't need to see that.
Nah, we don't need to know who's close. Now, I will be honest, we hit, again, this is like having a great meal. This is not grocery store chili. This is you're at a great barbecue restaurant, and you're sitting there, and every course that you have is fantastic, and that's what the race has been. We hit, I'm critiquing here, we hit a little bit of a lull in the 40s. Not the end of the world. But when they took the timing off, I actually said to Rob, I go, maybe because no one's close to anybody at this point? Question. And so
this is the serving that they've kind of held back and said, hey Brian, there's some good stuff coming. Yeah. Just let yourself digest for a bit.
Eat the sides. This was the sides. It was like, all right, fries and mac and cheese. Yeah, all right, mac and cheese and fries are fine. But when are we getting back to the brisket? And we did. But then Rob also noticed one more thing. Rob was on top of the timing tower. Oof. Alonso finally boxed from mediums, and I looked, and there was a little red S there next to his name. I go, nobody at Pirelli anticipated a medium to soft move this race, but Fernando Alonso and the non-vibrating Aston Martin made it happen.
Yeah, 44 laps on those mediums, and then went over to softs. But wow. So then we had Charles absolutely catching Max now. It was just a matter of time. Charles got Max, and I thought, well, that's that done. And Max was just like one last... It's kind of like it's like the Terminator, where every time you think they've killed Arnie, he just keeps coming back one last time. It's like, oh, I'm still coming to get you. And then Oscar was right up there as well. So then Charles finally gets Max. Oscar then gets Max lined up. He gets him, and Oscar must have been sat back taking notes. He's kind of like writing down his notepad. Okay, so when Charles did that, I'll just write this one here. Because basically he'd worked it all out, and by the time Oscar came up to Max, he just breezed by him, and Max had nothing. I think maybe he'd used his final scrap of rubber trying to hold on to Charles.
Well, he did, but weirdly, then George is starting to line up Max, and George must not have taken any notes, because he didn't really make an impression on him for quite some time. And at this point, Crofty committed a bit of a crime. He called it the Red Bull Max's wing, not a Macarena wing, a Max Arena wing, which I threw up a little bit in my mouth at that point.
Did you hear him? There was a point where I think he realized how bad it sounded. Did you hear how he tried to blame the Red Bull team for it?
Yeah, they're the ones who are saying it. Come on, Crofty. Come on.
Just own it. Own it, Crofty. It was bad, but just own it as yours. Don't try to... When everyone looked at him, I can imagine like Martin just side-eyed him and went, what? That's what they're calling it in Red Bull.
Well, that's what other people are telling me. And so at this point, I'm getting all jazzed up. Not just because we're we care about the midfield as well, the podcast and the actual midfield. But like we looked at it, and the Williams are both in the points. Colapinto is 8th, and they are running solid. Like there's no real attempt on their positions. They're going to be in the points. And
there's no luck involved in this. Nothing happened
No.
where it was like this happened, that happened. They
the
benefited from
Haas's
this. It
look
was
bad. The RBs look bad. And so, you're watching this and you're thinking, wow. And then as Rob and I are typing this back and forth furiously, Teddy Boy Kravitz, stealer of the Cadillac corner, starts reading our notes aloud. And he's like, double points for Williams. And look at Franco Colapinto, literally 4 seconds after we typed it. So, Ted, we see you. We're coming for you in Canada. Watch your back.
And then Oscar is hunting Charles down because he can smell a podium. George had spent a long time chipping. He was 6 seconds behind, and Oscar and Charles had taken 6 seconds down to striking distance within 2. Took George 5 to do the same reeling in of Max. So he's finally there. I thought he's going to get him. Like Brian said, they went back and forth. He just couldn't make it stick. And when he finally got a chance to go past him, yeah, they made contact and George screwed his car up. I actually thought George was going to be out at this point, where we could see it scraping across the floor and the sparks going everywhere. I was like, uh-oh.
I thought it was his tire at first, or suspension. I didn't realize his wing, and then they showed it, and like you say, his wing end plate area is dragging the ground. But then when the active arrow opens, it flips up and is now like in front of his wheel. I'm like, oh man, this is worse than a Magnussen meatball in Canada where it's dragging on the side.
Yeah, and Piastri gets Leclerc now, so Piastri's up into podium position. Charles is going to try and fight back, and then, oh my gosh, we just see a spinning Ferrari, and it's like, oh, he's out, they announced.
Right.
I don't think he's out. And just like Max earlier on, it's like, no, today's the day of 360 recoveries. But
unfortunately, Charles did it at the skinniest part of the track.
Yeah.
And, which, by the way, would not be the podcast I would be on. And so...
Skinniest side of the track.
And so as Charles saves it, he does hit the wall. And again, we were recording this. We started exactly 10 minutes after the Champagne. And so as we saw the replay, he hits the track, and then we quickly get some cuts of him cutting corners, which he gets a note for from the stewards. And then they announce he's being investigated for driving in an unsafe condition. Oh, come on. Even Brundle was annoyed by that. I mean, like, George had a wing which was going like this and had carbon fiber flipping and flopping. And, yeah, Charles had some problems with the suspension and maybe the alignment and maybe 8 other things were wrong. And maybe everybody passed him as he finished the lap. But what do you want him to do? Like, park? I mean, he was still 4 wheels aimed loosely forward.
And like about 3 corners from home. Like, where's he supposed to put it? So, no, I agree. And at that moment, that whole moment was the perfect storm for Brian, where after being so upset that he'd taken his finger off the piece too early last week and picked both the Ferrari boys for his blackjack hand, and he was like, oh, what did I do that for? That's stupid. The exact moment when Charles was 3rd and Lewis was 7th, he was sitting in blackjack utopia. He was on 21 points.
I didn't even notice
he was on 21 points when I was looking at this thinking, okay, if Oscar can get Charles, then that takes away Brian's blackjack and should mean if it finishes like this, I'm going to win unless Lando can catch Kimi, because then I'll go bust, because I have Lando and Ollie. So Ollie's sitting way outside the points at this point. So I'm like, right, I've got Lando on 18 points. Brian's got 21. Now I was willing to take the hit here, because what happened then in this chaos of these last couple of laps is as Oscar takes Charles, you lose blackjack to me, but at the same time, you're now going to beat me in podium predictions because you had Oscar finishing in 3rd. So you did get, it was a little bit of a 1 in, 1 out, bouncer managing the nightclub line. But
I will say this, I forgot. I mean, I remember we talked about this on the Discord, how I got so blinded by excitement that I forgot to do math, and I took the Ferrari boys. But it was perfect. It was looking great until Charles decided to do a spinorama, and then cost me a boatload of points. And I know we're getting ahead of it here, but Ferrari boys gave me 14, and you had Lando at 18. Darn it. Dang it. I went from blackjack with 1 lap left. Blackjacks are so rare anyway. I would have had 2 in a row, and then Charlie... Okay.
That's why I'm actually okay to lose to you on podium predicts, because that was the lesser of 2 evils. Having you sit there grinning like a Cheshire cat with back-to-back blackjacks, I would have just not recorded an episode. I might not even have gone to Montreal.
The last lap. And
I was watching it. I was sweating on a number of things,
Mamma
thinking,
mia,
"Oh my god,
Charles."
But anyway, so what that meant was that
Just an incident.
Kimi wins.
Yes. Great job.
Did they say he's the first person to make his first 3 victories from his first 3 pole position
Yes,
conversions?
he was.
Like
I said it like 10 times, and we've started so fast, no SAP stats this week. But yes, he's the first driver to convert his first 3 poles to wins. He's also one of like 3 other luminary drivers to win 3 in a row after the first one. And so it was
I think he just joined Schumacher and
someone amazing. That's what I'm saying.
Else.
Like luminaries of the sport. And so, Kimi, Lando, and Oscar on the podium, which, by the way, for our predictions, like you just said, you nailed Kimi as the winner. So I got 3 points, but that's all I got because I lost Charles, because I had Charles in third. So this is what I'm saying. When Charles was in third, I kicked your ass in podium predictions because I had first and third correct, but I was going to have to put up with you crowing about blackjack. So it kind of all worked out in the end. It did, and I got Oscar right, but I had Kimi wrong, but I got him on there. So I win 4 points, you have 3.
Correct. So that'll go into the total. I'm still ahead in podium predictions, but you've clawed a point back. Yeah. So in terms of the rest, George sort of dragged his flappy wing back. Not the flappy wing at the back, like everyone's talking about. This was his flappy front wing. He managed to get 4th. Max stole 5th on the line from Charles.
We
don't know if he'll have a penalty for crossing the line yet. He's under investigation. Charles took 6th. He's under investigation. Lewis was in witness protection for a big chunk of the second half of the race because he had a broken wing and just hung out in 7th after trying to stay with George.
Yeah, damaged side pod area too, like all the barge board stuff was messed up.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good he's not going to be happy with it, but bringing the car home in 7th in a condition like that, I think is pretty good. Pinto, like you already said, in 8th, and then double Williams points for smooth operator and Alex in 9th and 10th.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like they earned it. Like you say, it wasn't a fluke, and just tremendous. It's great to see that we've had the success for Williams here in Miami. Shall we do King of the Pits and the Pits?
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with King.
Hey, you're the king of the pit.
Are you interested in going first, or shall I?
I am interested in going first, actually, because I think you went first
please
last time.
go.
So I'm giving it to Kimi. It has to be 3 wins in a row, and not only that, when he was having all that, what's going on with my gearbox, my paddles, my downshifts, everything's breaking, everything's going wrong, that would be really easy for a young kid to just panic. And he was on 2 strikes for track limits. So you've got, don't run wide again. Try not to worry about what seems to be broken in your gearbox right now, and don't worry about that papaya thing that's chasing you down from behind. So
in the mirror.
Yeah,
it's the world champion.
It's the world champion that's behind you as well. Yeah, so like for a young kid to not only do that, but then make that record and be up there with those major drivers like that. I can't look elsewhere.
I agree, and I know the strategy helped. The undercut helped him get into track position over Lando, but he held on to it then for a long time, as you say, with Lando up his trumpet. So I agree with you on Kimi. He's really proven a lot of people wrong, that he was too early, too soon. All the stuff Toto said the other day when he was trying to congratulate him. Oh, he crashes too much, Kimi, and he went through a laundry list of problems. I'm like, just say congratulations.
Notable shout out though to Williams.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, notable shout.
Honorable mention to Williams.
Honorable mention, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Go on, now you can do the pits.
You're the pits.
After you, sir.
This is a hard one, so I get to do one when I don't know if I have a clear pits. Okay, I do have it. I agree with what we said. I don't think Colapinto hitting Lewis was anything other than a racing incident. I don't think Liam had his elbows out when he flipped Pierre. I think he slid a little, and I don't think that was across the line. Max did hit a bunch of people, but it was kind of like old school Max battling through, and then he put on some amazing moves. I'm giving it to Isaac, even though he's our guy. You got to give tough love to those you do love. And the temper tantrum after his own mistake, and I know we did ask Valtteri this, if the car goes wrong or you go wrong, what sits more on you? And Valtteri said me, because I let the whole team down. The car goes wrong, we learn, we get better, we come back next week. Isaac let the whole team down. That was his mistake. And then he acted like a total infant. And yes, you got to burn off your anger some way, but come on, bro. And so, like, I give it to Isaac.
And feeling like I don't want to do this. For me. I'm gonna give the pits. And I know what did he? Oh my gosh! I'm gonna give a pits to a ridiculous one. I'm gonna give the pits to George because he's in the same machinery as Kimi. You still aren't on board the Kimi hype train yet. You still think George, or last time we evaluated this, you didn't believe that Kimi could drive off away from George, and George is the number one driver, and George is probably more likely to take the championship
out
of the two
anymore, but yeah,
you might not, right? But when we last evaluated it, you did, right?
Yes.
And I said, and I'm not trying to say, I was right, but I will just say I was right on this instance. I said that George moans a lot when the car isn't completely suiting him. He doesn't seem to just go and get on with it. And today the car wasn't great for Kimi. He was having all these weird gremlins going on, and he just got on with it. And he just converted it to a win, and he went after it. George moaned for the first 3/4 of that race about whatever. And then finally, when he magically had it, it's all come together now. Yeah, well, great. It's too late. Like, you should have been knuckling down for the first 2/3 of the race when it wasn't. And it's just same machinery, and I'm judging him against Kimi. And I know where he's finished, and the race is a good result, but I'm just giving it to George. I don't think he covered himself in glory this weekend.
I'm surprised he didn't get on the radio and go, is Charles starting at the same place we agreed to on the safety car restart? Anyway, I hear you. It's more of a, you reached for it, but I do understand what you're saying, and I totally get it. Let's hear Pit Lane Paul's third thieving from Miami.
Hey now, a very Miami hey now. What am I doing? I'm just sort of lingering outside the driver room area. We're sort of I think I've said this before when we've raced here, but we're kind of situated up in like the corporate boxes of the Hard Rock Stadium, looking out to the pitch. So it's quite a unique setup here. It's so loud because they've got some really average DJ on. He's probably really good, but when you get old, which you two guys will fully sympathise with, just noise, isn't it? Just noise. Right, so how did we break down that today? Woke up this morning to literal Armageddon. The thunderstorms that were promised were very on cue, actually. They were really good. I've got the old Lightning Pro app, which was going crazy. So I was up early. I don't think it would have made much of a difference if it was, an alarm or lightning or even the Lightning Pro thing. It was it would have woke you up. It was a proper Miami storm. We were sort of feeling the worst, like, is this weather going to scupper us? It was so wet. And then we left to race, and then it sort of just did nothing. It just continued to stay dry, which part of me I'm quite sad about, if I'm being honest. So I kind of wanted that rain to spice it up a little bit. I mean, it's not the track you want it to rain, and, I didn't want it to be red flag heaven, but I kind of wanted to spice it up a little bit, so I was a bit down about it. Okay. Anyway, race started, thresh of rain, 10 laps in, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, the race was pretty exciting. Obviously, sort of focusing on what Valtteri's doing, which, no offence, wasn't a lot. Linger around, hit the back. I think there's some performance issues there with the car. Is anyone who knows motor racing, it's very rarely the driver in that situation. So yeah, try some things. Gambled on soft, hoping it was going to rain, and then it didn't rain, and that sort of made that decision look a bit silly. But you kind of have to do that when you're down where we are. Then anything further forward, I thought was really exciting. There seemed to be leads changing all over the place. And I think, like, a few of the races towards the end, you got to a certain point and everyone kind of leveled out, and then gaps started appearing. But at the front, there was still a really, quite a healthy fight. So, yeah, for the weeks we've waited, I think Miami's really delivered this year from a race which we all thought would actually be quite disappointing. So, yeah, from our side, perfect. A very successful weekend. Well, apart from losing a very expensive car. Well, I didn't lose it. I mean, I didn't lose it. So anyway, that's that. That's the fun of Miami done. We've got a nice early finish now. We got a nice early afternoon where we can go and get some. Oh, we'll go get some beers. I won't lie, it's needed after that today. Anyway, good to be back, guys. Good to be saying some hey no's, and good to be seeing you next race. Ciao, Bella.
Yes, next race.
Next race. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Should
as
we
always.
hang up on correspondent pit lane Paul and jump straight over to Cadillac Corner?
It's Cadillac Corner. It's Cadillac Corner. It's Cadillac Corner.
This is a special edition of Cadillac Corner. I know this is going to be counter to most of you who listen to the Dirty Side, but Rob and I actually do know how to read.
Yes.
And we
True story.
occasionally read periodicals, books, articles, things that are on paper or online. And the Players Tribune had a fantastic article by
Really
Valtteri.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. And it, like I say, we are shamelessly huge Valtteri fans.
This is Valtteri Bottas, and you're listening to the Dirty Side of the Track.
But this article took some of the questions we asked him about how he got into karting and into F1 eventually, and his story with racing, and it goes into it in more detail. Now, he did share with us the porridge aspect. We knew that his grandfather had said if he wanted to suit a car, he needed to grow and he had to eat his porridge. And so he gives it a little more detail in this article. We'll put the link in the show notes, but the Players Tribune Valtteri article is tremendous.
It is. And there's a little slight little tack on to Cadillac Corner. We'll also give them a shout out for both cars finished the race again. So I know
Yes.
Paul's down on performance, but there's not too many teams that are saying that they're finishing every single race. I know Cadillac haven't finished every single race, but since I think Valtteri in Australia,
Right. when
is
he
it true
went
that's
out
their
at the-
only DNF and they've
Formula.
brought the car home every time since then?
Can't remember China, but definitely Japan.
So, yep. So, onwards and upwards for the Caddy boys. We'll be there cheering them on next race. So,
Wait, are we going to be at the next F1 race that occurs?
yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. Okay, so let's just round this out now then. So, in terms of standings, Kimi now goes almost a race win clear of George at this early stage of the season. So, we got Kimi on 100 points, George on 80. Charles on 63, Lando on 51, Lewis on 49, Oscar on 43, Max on 26, Behrman on 17, Gasman on 16, and Liam on 10 rounds out the top 10. Do you want to do the constructors, Mr. Sapp?
Yep, and remember, these all have an asterisk next to them as we're still waiting
we
on
don't
any
know.
penalties after the race or things to Charles or Max or George or who knows. But they have not been decided as of right now. Mercedes sits in first at 180 points, Ferrari 112, McLaren not far behind, catching at 94. A nice little delta down to Red Bull at 30, Alpine, with 21 points. And then Haas at 18. I felt like Haas had a weekend to forget the whole weekend through.
Witness protection. Didn't see him.
Didn't know they were racing. 14 for Racing Bulls, Williams 5, Audi 2, and then Cadillac and Aston Martin with 0. The question I've been asking guests, who will have the first point or will it be nobody? Nobody is starting to take the lead in the Vegas betting odds on that one.
And then we've kind of really already hit this already, but the Rob versus Brian update, podium predictions. I went midweek for Kimi, George, and Charles. So our scoring system is 3 points if you nailed the position, 1 point if you got somebody on the podium but in the wrong order. So I just get 3 points for saying Kimi first because George and Charles did not set foot on the podium. Brian was still aboard the George hype train and went George, Kimi, Oscar. So he gets nothing for George. He gets a point for Kimi because he had him but not in the right spot. And Oscar, he gets the 3. So he beats me 4-3. Roulette, we drew 20th out the hat. There's no classifieds yet that I can see, but Lawson on the
I can see
timing
him.
board was being shown as 20th, and
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter because we went for much higher anyway. We went for Bottas and Stroll, so
Correct.
neither of us got the casino game, got the roulette table. And then blackjack, you have to hit 21 with the 2 drivers that you pick to try and or get closest to without going bust. I was sweating on Lando catching Kimi and sending me bust because it was a big gamble to take Lando, but he bought me 18 points. Ollie got me nothing, and as we've already covered, Brian was sitting on a 21 until the last lap, and then ends up with 14. So I win the blackjack hand. So
yes, you do. And fantasy is still calculating. So we will cover that next week, and kind of what ended up happening throughout the weekend and all of the different negative points that were assigned to most of my drivers. So I'll be happy to tumble down the standings exponentially.
And we'll also do cleanup on Isle Miami if there's anything notable, because we were recording so quickly. We can correct ourselves for anything. Not anything we got wrong, because it's technically right at the moment, but by the time you listen to this, it might not be.
Correct. Things that changed after time of recording. At some point over the next 2 weeks, we'll obviously do our regular week before Canada preview, but we also need to talk about our trip to Canada, what we've learned, what we're looking forward to. We can do that the week before, or we can figure out a time next week. We'll figure that out in our production meetings, which occur regularly at the Dirty Side offices.
I think that's that then. It was Miami, you delivered. It was a cracking race. My takeaway is that I hope these tweaks to the regs survive from track to track, and it wasn't just Miami specific. But I'm liking the tweaks I'm seeing so far. Quali felt good, race felt good, no artificial Mario Kart mushrooms. It was just all good.
I agree. I'm hoping that Mercedes doesn't have like killer upgrades that everyone's worried about, and then they just go back in front of everyone by a mile. But I guess, as we always say, McLaren's working on stuff too. Ferrari's working on, all the teams are working on stuff. So let's not discount that. And Canada, different type of track. So we'll see what those attributes bring. It's not as smooth. Maybe George will like that, which is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. And on that bombshell, it is time to end. I stole that from somebody. Everybody, thank you so much for listening this week. I hope you enjoyed the Miami Grand Prix as much as Rob and I did. And we'll be back in 1 week's time. Be well, everyone.